Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mack. And tonight, our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Orlando Magic in a highly competitive Game 6 matchup with a lot of stakes, man. A lot of stakes. We already know all of the pressure in the world is on the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Orlando Magic, for what it's worth, are kind of just playing with house money for right now. They're playing pressure-free basketball. Outside of elimination, there's the inherent pressure built into an elimination game for them, but nobody truly expected them outside of a handful of individuals in the larger media. It seems chose them to win this series. And now we're heading to a game 7, a fucking game 7 against the Orlando Magic. It just, no disrespect to them. I just know I got a flood of comments coming into this video. It may not even be right now, but there will be a flood of play the song comments in this live stream's video as soon as it airs. I just know it. That said, man, we as Tune In Sports down here says, I'm gonna jump right into this comment section because I just don't have the fucking brain capacity to deal with the bullshit that we just watched. Just a Donovan Mitchell masterclass tonight. Donovan Mitchell dropped 50 points on 36 songs. There it is. Matt L. played a song. I knew I was going to see it. It's going to come. More of those are going to come in the comments as this wraps up and whatnot. But we wasted a 50-point game from Donovan Mitchell. 50 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, 22 of 36. This man took 36 shots in game 6, and he was basically he was the Cavaliers tonight. Donovan Mitchell basically was the Cavaliers side, especially in that fourth quarter, where, if I'm not mistaken, he scored every single point, and he scored the final 2 points of the third quarter. There's nothing more that man could have done to secure a victory for this team. There's nothing more that he could have done. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about three-point shooting? Fine, sure, whatever. 3 of 9 from three-point distance. That's not great, but I'm going to let it go because the dude scored 50 points. And then Darius Garland, my boy, I sent out a tweet. I think it was maybe midway through the third quarter where he had finally started to really step up, coming after a game 5 performance in which he scores 17 points in the first quarter and, rounds things out by making one of the biggest plays of the game, a wraparound pass, mind you, to Evan Mobley to put the Cavs up 98-102. Comes in tonight's game. He has a pretty good first half. Him and Mitchell are playing off of one another quite well. And then he kind of just wets the bed down the stretch. I mean, there's no other way to put it. 8-second violation. How does that shit happen? How does that happen? And this is where we get into the conversations of the late game execution. All right. I just do not understand it. I really do not. Yeah, and here we go right here. I see the bevy of Magic fans in here, and I get it, man. There's nothing that I can say. 50 points from Donovan Mitchell was not enough to secure the victory for Cleveland tonight. They didn't get the job done. The big what if in this one harkens back to the 3-point shooting, right? Just 7 of 28 on tonight. That's 25% from 3-point distance. And you're not going to win a game more often than not when that happens to be the case. That was the real, the Darius Garland turnovers, the late game execution, whatnot. Those definitely hurt. But the real big gut punch is the fact that this team still cannot shoot the 3 ball in this series. They are not shooting well at all. And yeah, I see the comments down here referencing the Mobley 3 points, 3 points, 7 boards. I don't know, man. I really don't have an excuse. I'm not even going to try and make an excuse for that. There's no excuse for Evan Mobley's production tonight. I still have Cavaliers winning on their home floor in game 7, but man, this is definitely not a good feeling right now. Not a good feeling. I'm just not in a good place in reference to what we just witnessed. It was an epic collapse down the stretch. Floyd Phillips II says JB Bickerstaff was a no-show in the fourth, couldn't get anyone a shot, no offense. I mean, I think a lot of that is on JB, but at the end of the day, as I continue to say, man, Your first half, they shot 1 of 14 from 3-point distance. That put them in a hole. JB still kept a minute down, just 4 heading into the half. And then it becomes a Donovan Mitchell show, right? Which I have no complaints with because Donovan basically was the Cavaliers in the second half. And that is not always going to be a recipe for success in the playoffs. Obviously, you need your superstars to step up, and Donovan did that at basically the highest level today. But man, it wasn't enough. It was not enough to get the job done. Tom K says JB has to get into DG's ass for not staying aggressive. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure in regards to, what the conversation was in that regard, because I felt like DG had his foot on the pedal in that first half and then kind of just let it off in the second, right? Let it off in the second. Old Town says, what a game. Mitchell breaking the paint record is insane. Yeah, I mean, Donovan was phenomenal tonight on basically one leg. That man, you could tell he was grimacing every single time that they went down the court. That was definitely something to behold. And I had wished that would have resulted in a W, but it didn't. I mean, I'm pissed about it. I am. We wasted a 50 burger. Emmerich Dillon says, Mitchell going to put up an historical stinker next game? I don't think so. I mean, people are constantly changing their opinions on Donovan Mitchell and whether or not that guy is special or if he's a superstar. If you think he's going to put up a stinker in Game 7, yeah, it's a goddamn lie. He's not going to drop 50. I can guarantee you that after the way that he looked coming off the court today. But I think he'll have a productive Game 7. Again, I still have a ton of faith that the Cavaliers get this done in 7, but case in point being the Cavaliers, we shouldn't even be heading into a Game 7. The Magic, man, they're busting our ass in a lot of different categories. And I felt I was saying heading to that half, hey, you knock down some of these shots from range, this is a completely different game. The Cavs walk away with this. But one, you can't knock down shots. And then on the other end, you have Paolo and Franz and company just driving into the heart of the defense and drawing a ton of contacts, getting a ton of free throws. It was brutal to watch. And credit to Jamal Mosley and company. Magic did work tonight. I got to give him that. I got to give him that. I mean, Cavaliers did not do themselves any favors not being able to knock down any shots. But I got to credit Orlando for this one. Sucks. Too many miscues down the stretch. Too many miscues for Cleveland down the stretch. 13-13 on the turnover battle. Not a whole lot of ball movement tonight as Cleveland finished with just 15 total assists to Orlando's 19. And then again, we got out-rebounded. If I'm not mistaken, Cleveland has now been out-rebounded in the last 4 games straight. We out-rebounded Orlando in games 1 and 2, but games 3, 4, 5, and now 6, we've been out-rebounded. That's a huge portion of this, the extra possessions and whatnot that they are able to generate. And they're able to end good defensive stops with defensive rebounds. That's something that you definitely need. JJ says, I love Allen, but come on, suit up, bro. I mean, we all wanted Allen to be out there, but who am I to comment on the potential damage that he could cause himself, in regards to that pierced rib? That's what they're calling it, or a rib contusion. I've seen it reported numerous different ways under numerous monikers, but I don't know if it's truly safe for him to play, to be honest. A lot of people talking about Allen down here. I see Elliot Clausen says, I won't be able to take this shit if we blame injuries. No excuses for how bad the team is playing. I don't think injuries are the excuse this time around, man. It's piss poor shooting. JB has some blame here. Make no mistake. I did not enjoy putting Niang in the game at certain points today. I did not enjoy some of the rotations. But at the end of the day, the bulk of the blame to me goes on the players in the rotation for not stepping up and knocking down shots. Donovan Mitchell basically was the offense tonight. You got absolutely nothing, and you continue to get absolutely nothing from your bench. Guys, the Cleveland bench contributed a grand total of 10 points tonight. 10 points. 10 fucking points from your bench. Your leading bench scorer was Isaac Okoro with 4 points. That is not going to cut it. And even if the Cleveland Cavaliers end up winning this series, which I feel like they will, they're going to get wiped out in 4 games playing against the Boston Celtics with that type of production from their bench. There is absolutely no way in hell that Cleveland is going to get past the second round with production like this. I just do not understand the production that you're getting. Caris LeVert has been a no-show, bro. Caris LeVert played 7 minutes tonight. That should tell you how bad things are. After having a pretty good season in which many people felt that he should have at least received, maybe a vote or gotten some love for 6th man of the year, he's been a complete no-show. It's been ridiculous. I do not understand it. Where has he gone to? He's completely disappeared. George Niang has basically been benched. He played 11 minutes tonight, but he was ineffective, still continues to be ineffective. And if I'm not mistaken, he is now 2 of 16 from 3-point distance. If my math is correct, it's been rough, man. It has been rough to watch this team operate like they have their heads in their asses. The bench production is lacking. Players within the starting unit are not giving us much. It's just been ridiculous. I don't even know what to say. I can't sit here and make excuses about injuries. Yes, Jarrett Allen being out, that definitely hurts. Yes, Dean Wade, his presence is definitely being missed right now. But I don't know what else to say. I think I want to chalk tonight up to just abysmal shooting once more, and then bad late game execution in terms of Darius Garland. But man, it has been rough. Reaper 23 says, how is the highest paid Cav out there looking lost? And this is the thing. Garland, on paper, he didn't have a terrible game. It's just, man, the turnovers, it's just the completely wrong time. And then the lack of a box out on the Cole Anthony offensive rebound. That was a killer. Those types of plays right there, you're not going to win a heated competitive playoff atmosphere. You're not going to win a big time game when you're failing to secure defensive rebounds like that, when you're failing to box out, when you're failing to put yourself in good position. Just it hurt to watch, man. After him having a pretty good first half and then not a terrible third quarter, but it really got rough out there, man. Yeah, he did look scared at the end of the game. I got to give you that, Tom K. Charles Whitlock II says DG got a crazy bag and 0 b-ball IQ. I don't agree with the basketball IQ thing, obviously. I think that he is a very intelligent player. I just think that sometimes he lets the pressure of the moment get to him. And I think that's fair to say that. I hate to see that because in game 5, Darius Garland, if you want to say that he has no basketball IQ, then you probably didn't watch game 5 because he was almost a one-man wrecking crew in points in that game. And he did much the same specific portions of tonight's game. So I can't agree with you on that. But what I will say is that sometimes I just feel like he's a no-show in times, in clutch moments. And we just know where we stand with him right now. As far as some of these other comments down here, DeMonte says, do you want to see Sam get some run time? Of course I want to see Sam get some run time. Do you see we're shooting 25% from 3-point distance? I mean, we had one made triple at halftime. Yes, I would like to see Sam Merrill out there, but I scratch my head at JB Bickerstaff at times. You guys know I've been a supporter of JB for much of the season, but I can't sugarcoat it in that regard. I just feel like your shots are not falling, so why not try something? I mean, you put Niang back in after saying, I get it. Chris Fedor reported that he was going to be back within the rotation despite having a DNP in game 5, but you put Niang in, so why not try it out with Sam Merrill when you don't have shots falling? I do not get it. I do not understand it. It's ridiculous. GW says, Mac, let's be real. Don't sugarcoat it. You know what you saw. Dudes can't handle the pressure, bro. Don did his thing. Evan needs the most criticism. I hope you respond, but man, you the man though, Mac Barrett. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. I mean, nobody is immune to criticism tonight outside of, I'm going to take Donovan Mitchell out of it. If you talk down on Donovan Mitchell tonight, I cannot fuck with you. I'm not doing it because it belongs in no discussion in regards to tonight's game. Donovan Mitchell was phenomenal on basically one leg out there. Cody 11 Good says, you think DG and Spider are traded if we lose round one? No, I think Don leaves. Well, I guess that would essentially mean traded, but I think Don is gone, right? I think that's the one thing that we can say. I think you hold on to DG, especially if Don, you really, really, really have to say, if Donovan Mitchell ends up leaving, you're not moving on from Darius Garland. I think that's common sense, right? You're not going to get rid of both of your guys. You're just not going to do it unless you're completely rebuilding. YouTube this recommended. Is this the script? I don't even know what that means. I see you got a Celtics logo in there. I'm going to take that. I don't know. I'm not even going to. I don't know. It's been bad, man. Been bad. 1 to 5, Evan Mobley got to shoot more. Is the future or not, man? Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to believe that Evan Mobley is the future, but games like tonight, from a offensive standpoint, don't leave you with a good taste in your mouth. He did show up on the defensive end in numerous occasions, but that's simply not enough. We know he is a defensive dynamo. We need more from him from an offensive perspective. Just need more, man. Man. Tune In Sports says NBA got what they wanted to Game 7. They were televising that shit. They were promoing Game 7 before the end of the first quarter. That was ridiculous, in my opinion. But I mean, the result still ended up being the same. It still worked out for them. So I mean, I guess they got what they wanted. They got what they wanted in that regard. So I don't know. Fuck off, ESPN. Tom K says Spider likely won't resign or won't extend. If you can give him money, prop time to trade DG to Spurs or something. I think that, again, if Donovan Mitchell ends up being moved, you're not moving Darius Garland as well. You're going to have to keep one of those guys. I can guarantee you, if the Cavaliers lose round one, Donovan is going to opt to leave. I don't think you're going to move DG if that ends up being the case. Matt L says DG has all the talent to take over. Not sure why he isn't aggressive as he should. Could be. We saw him do it in the first quarter of Game 5, and we saw him do it at points tonight where he was being aggressive. He drove into the heart of the defense, had a couple of ridiculous layups that I was just scratching my head wondering, how the hell did you make that? But it just doesn't come all the time like we have seen with Donovan Mitchell. I just don't get it. I don't know, man. It's brutal. It's been brutal. Just not a lot to say. If you join the show tonight expecting for deep basketball discussion or an in-depth breakdown, I just simply am not going to be able to provide that tonight, just because my mind is all over the place with the potential implications of a Game 7 loss. I don't even want to go there, man. I just don't want to think about it, because it's going to shake the roster to its core, right? And that's a discussion for the post-game pod after Game 7. Hopefully we're sitting here discussing the Cavs' second round matchup against the Boston Celtics, but we could just as easily, with the way that this series has gone, we could just as easily be talking about a long offseason and a overhaul, right? It's tough. Mr. Roll Up 10 says Magic will win Game 7, book it. Again, I do not believe that's going to end up being the case. I still have Cavs in 7. My original prediction was Cavs in 6, and it looked like it was going to head that way for a portion of this game, really in the early going. But the Cavs just could not get the shot to drop, man. It's been brutal. Even heading into halftime, I was thinking to myself, man, you just get a couple of these things to drop from range. The complexion of this game is completely different. That just did not end up happening, obviously. Charles Whitlock II says DG was aggressive for 3 quarters. He just disappears in the clutchest moments. Hate to say it, but I have no defense for that. It sucks, man. I hate it. That's exactly what happened. Ollie Grant says Cavs should trade Don to LA for their 3 first-round picks: Reeves, Vanderbilt, Vincent, and Hayes. I don't think that is what's going to end up happening. Obviously, Don is going to have the biggest say in that, but I wouldn't make that trade. That's just me, but I'm sure some fan out there probably would. Paramjot Sandhu says, what did you think about the refs today? I thought they allowed a lot of physicality on Orlando's part. And don't get me wrong, there are specific calls, that the Cavaliers got where I'm like, okay, you know what? That's a regular playoff foul. But at certain points, I just felt like they let the Wagners in particular, I felt like they just let Orlando get away with a lot more. Maybe that's just home court advantage, being at home and getting a friendly whistle. But I don't know, man. I did not enjoy the Zebras today. I felt like they allowed a ton of contact on Orlando's part. And if you look at the free throw discrepancy, and here's the thing, before I talk about the numbers, we know that Orlando features some of the best drivers of the basketball in the NBA in Franz and Paolo, who are both top 50 in drives per game. We know Paolo is, I think he entered the postseason garnering the 7th most free throws in the NBA. Don't quote me on that. I did a whole breakdown on this, but I don't have the numbers right in front of me. But tonight, Cleveland took 10 free throws to Orlando's 26. Nah, you cannot convince me that the Zebras did not play a role in that. Credit to Orlando for getting physical. That has often been the Achilles heel for Cleveland, is just the physicality and toughness of games like this. It's a huge reason why you brought in a guy like Marcus Morris. It's a huge reason why you brought in even George Niang and Tristan Thompson, right? The physicality and toughness that they have brought to the table in the past. I say all that to say this is an area that Cleveland still very much struggles in. And it is clear as day. And that simply sucks. It simply sucks to me. Ollie Grant says Don is definitely auditioning for another squad. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, if you're a Cavaliers fan, I'm sure, I would hope that you don't believe that. But if you're a Magic fan, I'm sure you do. I mean, I think that Don at this point in time has made his intentions very clear. If the Cavaliers do not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, he's basically gone, right? He has basically said that without saying that. That's the feeling that I have walked away with. And I think the same can be said in regards to JB Bickerstaff returning or not returning. A lot of people want him fired either way. JB Bickerstaff is as absolutely going to be fired if they do not make it to the at least the Eastern Conference Finals. That's just how it goes. Tom K says Spider wants to win this first round. I think so. I mean, well, I know so, obviously, but he wants to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond, right? I think anything less than that with this current team should be viewed as a failure in my eyes. And I get that the Boston Celtics in the second round, even if you push them to 6 or 7 games, that would technically count as progress, right? Considering that we lost in 5 to New York and didn't even advance past round 1 last year, technically that would be counted as progress. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about this elevated timeline that you have with Donovan Mitchell in town and him not under contract for a substantial amount of time right now, the clock has moved forward. And so you don't have time for that gradual progress. You have to have a significant leap in order for him to feel like this is worth staying. I mean, from a basketball perspective, I don't think he's going to find very many locations that can offer what we can in terms of competitiveness over these next couple of seasons with these guys not even in their primes yet. But at the end of the day, that's a decision that Donovan Mitchell is going to have to make. I don't know. Mr. Holupton says 6 or 7 games. Cavs wouldn't push Boston to 5 games. I mean, I hate to say it, but as I said earlier on, if the Cavaliers play like, even if they win game 7, which I believe they will, if they shoot the ball like they have no chance to go past 4 games with the Boston Celtics. The Orlando and Boston are in 2 different leagues. They do 2 very different things. Orlando scores the bulk of their points in the paint. I mean, I know that wasn't the case tonight or really in this series of specific points, but Orlando doesn't shoot the ball a ton. At least coming in 31.3 attempts per game. They've upped that to compensate for the fact that Cleveland has packed the paint in this series and they have done well at specific points. But at the end of the day, Boston represents an entirely different beast because they're an offensive juggernaut. They lead the league in 3-point attempts at 42.5 per game. They shoot the best 3-point percentage in the entire NBA, or at least the second best percentage of the entire NBA. Their bench is efficient as hell. They have a net rating of 3.5. That's the top mark in the league. They just do so many different things well. So if they're able to get past Orlando in game 7, which I believe they will, they have no shot against Boston playing like this, especially with the ball with the bench being the way that it is, especially with the shooting being the way it is, especially with the fact that they're not able to get much production from anybody else outside of maybe a handful of players. It's been rough. Vibrant Stars says Magic would give Celtics a better challenge. I don't think so. I think that at the end of the day, Cleveland, their Achilles heel this series has been the lack of shooting. Cleveland wins this series in probably 5 to 6 games if they could just knock down some damn shots. And I give Orlando credit for making life difficult. Jalen Suggs and Jonathan Isaac in particular for making things very difficult on the likes of Donovan Mitchell and company. It's rough, man. It's rough, but at the end of the day, I do feel like if they could just knock down some damn shots, this series could have been over already. And you could probably say the same thing for Orlando at specific points, but I mean, Cleveland, they've been even worse, right? At least Orlando has made things interesting even when their shot isn't falling. So it sucks. It really does. I don't think they quit on Spida, dude. I just think that they can't shoot the damn ball. I think they wanted to win that game, obviously, especially with the effort that they put on to come back after being down, despite not being able to shoot the ball at all. They made an effort. They scored a ton of fucking points in the paint. They got the job done in other ways, and that started with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, but nobody else really could impact. The bench, like I said, the bench gave you 10 points, bro. Isaac Okoro with 4 points was your leading scorer off the bench. I mean, there it is right there. There it is. Edward Zupin says, stop with the bench. F all of you. New York doesn't play their bench at all. I mean, bro, you ain't got to be in here. I mean, it is what it is. You don't have to be in here being like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, yes, we're all in agreement. It doesn't matter if New York is able to get production out of their starting line, more production out of their starting lineup, because we know what Tibbs does. Tibbs doesn't play his bench the same way that JB does. I mean, the numbers bear that out. They barely play their bench. But regardless, that still doesn't change the fact that Cleveland is not getting production out of their bench. If the starters aren't providing you anything, you're not going to ride the stars the same way that Tibbs does, because Tibbs gets production out of his starters. So that doesn't make any sense. So I mean, it is what it is. Elliot Clausen says, could Allen have given them 10 points? I don't think so. I mean, rib contusion, pierced rib, whatever they're reporting it as, I don't know. I don't think I would have wanted to have risked it because they do still have game 7. You know, that's the one thing. I think if today was an elimination game for Cleveland, he probably would have maybe suited up. I don't know. But considering they had at least one more game to give him rest, I think that was technically the right decision. You have an opportunity in game 7 to end the series. But again, so do the Magic. And that's where we're at. The Magic just they outperformed the Cleveland Cavaliers today. It's as simple as that in just about all facets. And credit to them, respect to them for being able to do that. You're not going to hear me shit talk them right now just because we don't deserve to do that. I mean, I'm going to try and keep it respectful. Bobby Schumacher says, how is that a bad 50-point performance other than the loss? I don't know. I don't know why people would think that would be a bad performance. It is what it is. I don't know. A lot of people I think are overreacting in certain areas, but at the end of the day, I get it. I understand it because Cleveland, this is a game that if they knock down some shots, series could have been over. But at the end of the day, the Magic were able to capitalize on their inability to do that, and they knocked down shots when they needed to. They forced turnovers when they needed to, and they out rebounded Cleveland when they needed to. It is what it is. Edward Zupon, if your bench is crap, which it is, ride the starters almost the whole game. you have I'm assuming you don't watch a lot of Cavaliers basketball, and if you do, I don't know why you would think that that would be a recipe for success, considering that Donovan Mitchell's on one fucking leg right now, basically, and he looked like he was about to fall out and fade and faint in that game 6, and then Jarrett Allen just got, Jarrett Allen got busted up. Evan Mobley, I mean, he has had dealt with injuries this season. All of these guys have dealt with injuries this season. They're no stranger to it. But why would you ride your guys into the ground even further when he basically already played them 40 plus minutes tonight? I don't know what your complaint is in that regard. Darius Garland played 43 minutes. Donovan Mitchell played 42 minutes. Max Strus played 39 minutes. He rolled the starters pretty damn hard. He just isn't Tibbsian in regards to it. And Embiid, that was an elimination game, right? That was an elimination game for them. Of course they did. It is what it is. And yes, I'm not disagreeing in that regard. I'm very, very appreciative of guys who go out there and are willing to stick it out and gut it out. But at the end of the day, it makes no sense to play your starters. I don't know, 50. What do you want them to play in 50 minutes? They played 40 points, 40 minutes tonight. I don't know what people want them to do. I really do not know what people want them to do in that regard. It just seems like a bunch of complaining. And I'm going to assume you're not a Cavaliers fan talking like that. I don't know. Chaz Orlando says Okoro still hasn't shown up in the playoffs. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy because Okoro is actually playing more minutes this postseason series than he did last year, and he's been even worse somehow. After coming off the best regular season of his career, in which he hit over 39% plus from 3-point distance, and and just seemed like the confidence was there. He has just been an offensive no-show. It's been absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. Not a lot of answers for that. This was a critical postseason for Okoro in terms of his restricted free agency. Having the type of series that he's had thus far, I'm not necessarily sure he's going to get as much money as I initially thought he would. And I get that we still have a game left and then potentially another series after that if they're able to win game 7. But Okoro, he's been a no-show. It's been tough to watch. And Jim Varney makes a good point. Okoro's hesitations are getting old. There were more than a few opportunities for him to go out there and knock down corner triples, and he just hesitated to take them. And that is exactly what got him yanked from the rotation of points last season. His inability to knock down the shot first and foremost, was what got him pulled from the postseason series against the Knicks. But it's tough, man. It's tough. I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to be too reactionary. We still have another game, but tonight was just a brutal loss. Just a brutal loss after you get 50 out of Donovan Mitchell. There's not much else that I can say. There is not much else to be taken away from this game. There really just isn't. Alex Cleveland says this team is the worst team ever, worse than last year. Screw this team, this franchise bum-ass team. Where LeBron at? That's the Cavs team. If LeBron not the Cavs, then this team is Bozo Packs. Oh man, Alex, man, go take a deep breath. It's gonna be okay. This team is actually much better considering the depth that they have compared to last year. Let me tell you, if they faced the amount of injuries they did last year with the roster they had last year, the Cavaliers wouldn't even reach the playoffs. They would not have reached the playoffs. That said, they have played just as bad at certain points that they that they did last year. Tom K says the vibes heading into Sunday are bad. I hope they pull it out though. The vibes are always bad, man. When the Cavs win, the vibes are still bad. When the Cavs lose, the vibes are even worse. It's just weird, man. It looks worse. I don't know, man. It's tough. People are going to continue to be critical, and they're entitled to their criticisms, though. So I get it. I understand it. I'm just trying not to overreact too much because I do believe that you win game 7 and the clock resets, right? Everything refreshes, then you get to game plan and prep for round 2. That said, they play like this, they're going to get swept by Boston, even if they make it out of game 7 alive. I cannot see them beating Boston with the way that they have played in this in this series thus far. Marked another game in which you have yet to, another game in which you don't put up 100 plus points. It just continues to happen. It's very, very frustrating. I have to believe that it is mentally taxing on everybody from top to bottom, from the players to the coaching staff. I don't know. I simply have no answer in that regard. Elliot Closet says, I'm overreacting. I hate this fucking team. Elliot, I'll tell you the same thing I told Alex. Take a deep breath, bro. It's basketball. It's not like we're playing. Just relax. It's going to be okay. Enjoy some of this thing that we call life. There are some good things. Jim Varney haha says, I thought Niang was going to try to hug Suggs. He really made him mad. He tried to get him up. He tried to pick him up. I felt like it was a routinely playoff level foul in regards to the screen that was set, and then he tried to pick him up. But as I think Richard Jefferson said on the ESPN broadcast, you don't try and help your opponent up in the playoffs, even if you're friends. I think that was a good point. Better to not do it and take that chance than to earn that foul and then give them additional opportunities at the free throw line where they basically lived at tonight. Again, 36 free throw. No, I can't even read right now. I'm so fucking mad. 26 free throw attempts for them to Cleveland's 10. That discrepancy, just ridiculous to me. But I'm not going to keep harping on tonight's game. I'm going to try and enjoy the rest of the night and just take it from there, head into game 7 with a a sense of urgency, I guess, because it could go one way or another. Either this team faces a soft reboot with Donovan Mitchell leaving after a first round exit, or they head to the second round for a date with the Boston Celtics, where they are sure to get annihilated if they continue to play like this. Cavs agenda, is that Steven? Is that you? Says I'm trying not to lose my mind. Me too, man. Me too. I got my beer down here with me. Sam Adams Boston Lager, my favorite. I'm not gonna let this shit ruin my night, man. I'm not gonna let it ruin my night. Y'all just take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. The Cavs have not lost the series yet, but it's another step in that direction. There are Orlando fans chirping up in the comments. I'm sure they're chirping up on social media and whatnot. And you know what? The Cavs deserve it. So I can't even be mad. I cannot even be mad. Verum says, I'm not impressed with Cleveland. I'm not sure how the expectation is to make Eastern Conference Finals. So let me explain it to you like this. It's not necessarily that people believe that they are good enough to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's that they have to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals in order for Donovan Mitchell to stay. That's basically it, right? Let me know if you agree with that in the comments. If you think I'm crazy, you think I'm spewing nonsense, let me know. But I think that's what it essentially boils down to. If it's not about the fact that people believe that this team is good enough to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but rather the fact that they have to make it there in order for Donovan to sign on to stay and, JB to continue coaching. JB may be fired either way. Who knows? Blue Tober season says this team is ass. We was never making it to the Eastern Conference Finals with this roster. I think never say never. But I mean, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. The only Champ Blue says, I watched Quincy Carrier and I agree with him when he said we should bite the bullet and rebuild the team, suck for some years and get better. I'm not there yet, man. I'm not there. I think if you lose game 7, yeah, that's what you end up doing. But you're telling me right now, because I don't have the full context of that Quincy Carrier quote, but you're telling me that if Cleveland ends up winning game 7 and then they go on to become successful, or in round 2, that you want to go ahead and blow the roster up and hit that rebuild button? No, I think Play it out. If they lose in game 7, you're going to have to essentially kind of go through a soft reboot anyways, right? Donovan Mitchell's likely to move on. But outside of that, you still have some pretty good pieces here to build around. You have Darius Garland, you got Evan Mobley, you have Jarrett Allen, and then you take it from there. I mean, a lot of people are of the mindset that they should not have made that deal in the first place because they were at a good place with depth and draft capital and whatnot. And if they end up losing in game 7, essentially a lot of those people are probably going to feel like they've been proven right because the Cavs are no closer to achieving their ultimate goal than they were 2 seasons ago, really, I suppose, because making it out of the play-in only to lose in the first round, was that really worth the trade? I don't know. I mean, obviously these things take time, but the people who are of that mindset, they're going to have more and more stoking behind that, right? Adolf Vuitton says Magic is a good team for real. Yeah, I do believe that if they add a few more pieces, they could be a legitimate contender, like a title contender. If they shore up a couple of areas, I don't think they're at that point just yet, but I do believe that they could get there within 1 to 2 seasons if the right moves are made. They are a very, very good team. JJ says, what would you do if we fall in 7 against Boston, fire JB, trade some of the role players? I think that JB is fired with anything less than an Eastern Conference Finals berth. Love JB, but the writing has been on the wall for a long time. That's just, it is what it is. If he cannot get this team to the Eastern Conference Finals, he's done. And some people believe he should be fired, even if they do. And at this point, I can't do a lot to combat that. But I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't know. Jose said, if we lose game 7, Bickerstaff and Altman DUI ass deserves to be fired. I don't think Altman will be fired. I do believe that JB will be let go. Just like we saw Darvin Ham be let go, just like that after just 2 seasons with the team. DJ Brobot says, I don't love JB. He is a rebuild coach, and he only got hired because Altman is boys with them. Even if that's become the case, there at the very least, there was a specific level of progression, at least in terms of the regular season with JB year over year. And even if you consider him to be a rebuild coach, which is fine, that's fair to say, we have to see what the available options are over the summer. But again, it all comes down to how game 7 and beyond goes, because JB will be let go as soon as the buzzer sounds in game 7 if this team ends up losing. Tom K says JB has to go. Coaching malpractice for a contending team, good for a building team, not for a playoff team. That's fair for right now. I don't think that all of the struggles that he has had this postseason really falls on him. I do believe that the players have kind of shit the bed or wet the bed, whatever you want to say. I feel like the players have just not shown up. And if you want to blame that on scheme, if you want to blame on the fact that you can't coach offense, all that good stuff, that's also fair to say. But at the end of the day, they have had some makeable shots out there, while a lot of them have missed. I can pull up the statistics. They've been in the breakdowns. A good number, more shots that have been open or wide open in terms of what the NBA considers to be open or wide open than have been tightly defended. People may not realize that, but the numbers bear it out. The Cavs are just not knocking down shots. That's, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Not some of that is on JB, but much more of that is on the players. And for City OG, Cleveland can't score over 100 points against the Magic. The Magic were the number 3 rated defensive team in the NBA. I'm not sure why that is a slight. Scoring in the playoffs is generally down, but again, a lot of that is on the Cavs. It's not necessarily the Magic, but I'm not going to slight the Magic because the Magic do basically have 2 all-world defenders in Jalen Suggs, who is probably going to be named to an all-defensive team, and Jonathan Isaac, who, had he played enough games and enough minutes, he probably would have been an all-defensive teamer as well. So I'm not going to disrespect them in any shape or form in that regard. They were the number 3 overall rated defense in the NBA for a reason. Got to give them respect. I don't know. Don't want to go too off the rails here. Hopefully game 7 is won by Cleveland, but who knows? I will say this. If you like the podcast, if this is your first time, visiting the channel, I do encourage you to go ahead and hit that like, hit that subscribe button. You know, you never know what you might find on the channel. I have some draft content planned and coming up. I'll probably be releasing out over the next couple of days, depending upon how game 7 goes, right? Might have to start looking at the draft even more and scouting even more of these guys, depending upon how quickly we enter the off season, because it could be all over after this next game. So we'll see how that goes. Also, again, I continue to say this every single live stream. If you want to show a little bit of love, you want to show a little bit of support, you can go to Patreon. The link is in the description. You can become a member for as low as $1 a day. You don't have to. I'm going to produce the content either way, but it is greatly appreciated. Just want to shout out to Dana Scott for becoming a recent member on there. I'd always love to see people do that, just because we get demonetized a lot, you know, as content creators on here, because especially NBA content creators, because we're constantly using clips and stuff like that in our videos and content. So if you want to become a member over there and help support, be greatly appreciated. That said, as I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com. I still see so many more comments in here. I want to reply to them. I'll take a few minutes to do that, but then I'm going to head out of here and let you guys go. We've been in here for a minute now. DJ Brotat says, the thing is, it can't be all stats. It's also that JB puts out bad lineups. He just doesn't adjust to situation. His offensive schemes are LBJ rudimentary, and he doesn't use his bench unless forced. So here's the thing, in my eyes. You don't have Dean Wade. That's pretty big, because essentially that leaves you with choosing between George Niang, who cannot hit a shot to save his damn life right now, and the recently acquired Marcus Morris, who we know what he has been able to provide. Solid move to bring him in off the buyout market, but the bench sucks ass right now. I mean, Karis LeVert has been a no-show. Isaac Okoro has not shown up as well. And then we have the aforementioned Niang. I mean, the only guy that you could really realistically say that isn't getting run that probably should is Sam Merrill, right? So I don't know. I cannot blame it all on JB in that regard, but JB does have a role to play. I see a lot of people saying that Kobe Altman's job isn't safe. I don't think his job is necessarily safe. I wouldn't say his job is guaranteed. I wouldn't say his job is like he's guaranteed to return, but I will say that of the two that are most likely to be fired, I would think that JB Bickerstaff would be the one out the door rather than Kobe. But that is not to say that Kobe Altman is off the hook either. I don't know. Tom K says JB has to go. Altman probably has a bit more leash right now. Some good moves, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, he's had some head scratchers at times. He's not always made the right decision in regards to specific things, but more often than not, he has fielded a pretty competent and playoff caliber roster. So, you know, whatever your personal feelings are on JB, not JB, on Altman, you know, in the DUI situation and the off the court stuff, he has legitimately been a pretty good president of basketball operations. I don't know. It is what it is. Maybe you agree with that. Maybe you don't. That's okay. Man. Cleveland Pulse, what's up, guys? Says lack of execution down the stretch tonight. Got to find a way to win Game 7. Honestly, Cleveland Pulse, Jeffrey, if that's you, they're not going to win Game 7 if they can't knock down shots, in my eyes. I mean, what this ended up showing us tonight is 50 points from Donovan Mitchell was not enough to buoy this Cavs team to victory. You can't go 1 of 14 heading into halftime. Although, you know, you're only down 4, granted. You cannot not shoot the ball and not get more than 10 points out of your bench and expect to win a crucial game. Now, I think Game 7, I think they end up taking it, but they have to shoot better than what they did tonight. It was just piss poor, and it's been par for the course this playoffs. They have been abysmal from outside the arc. They shot 25% from three-point range tonight. 7 of 28 is not going to cut it. They have to get more. Cavs Agenda says Kobe Altman failed to get a 3-and-D wing. Didn't have to be perfect. Steven, the one thing about that, though, is that 3-and-D wings don't grow on trees. They are the hardest archetype in basketball to acquire. There's a reason why they're usually they cost a substantial amount of money for one. And two, if you're in drafting range to get them, you're usually near the top of the draft with areas that Cleveland hasn't been in the last 2 seasons. And when they had been in that position prior to the acquisition of Donovan Mitchell, they were in a rebuilding stage where, the drafts haven't always been fruitful where they have been at. I mean, they drafted Colin Sexton 8th overall. If we want to be here and go down the revisionist history path, you can always say, well, they could have drafted a player A or they could have drafted player B. But at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't work like that. The Cavaliers, they picked the player who they felt would be the best for them at that point in time. You drafted Colin Sexton, you drafted Darius Garland 5th overall. Isaac Okoro in the 2022 draft. Well, in the 2020 draft, that was a crapshoot of a draft. Nobody was guaranteed anything because of the lack of scouting. I mean, seriously, that's why so many rotation caliber players and so many good players fell so low in that draft. And then you snag Evan Mobley up. That was the right decision at that point in time. So, I mean, I don't know. 3-and-D wings are the hardest archetype to acquire in basketball. It's not that easy. They cost a lot of money when they're available on the free agent market. And when you have to trade for them, you usually have to send out significant pieces to be able to do so. And that is where I fall with that. So if you want to fault Kobe Altman for not doing that, okay. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that that's a very, very hard thing to do. It really is. Michael Thompson says recipe for a win: shoot 39% to your opponent's 49%, make 7 last shots in the field. Oh, I know. Attempt 26 free throws to your opponent's 10. Oh, and play at home. Way to go, refs. I think that you knock down just a few more of these, and we're talking about a completely different conversation here. But again, they didn't. They haven't all series. It's been piss poor for the most part. So what else can I say? Cavs Agenda says Dean Wade isn't reliable. From a health standpoint, that certainly tends to be the case. And the Dean Wade experiment is probably going to come to an end sooner rather than later in that regard, just because he hasn't been available, man. Hasn't been available. The only Shampoo says, is it me or was there a lot of missed calls on Orlando fouls? I felt that way. I thought the officiating was very, very geared towards Orlando. I mean, they did have some home cooking going on in that regard. I thought that they were allowed to get away with a lot more physicality than the Cavs were, but at certain points, the Cavaliers refused to get physical, right? I cannot fault Orlando for taking advantage of that. That is something that they know how to do, and they know how to do very, very well. Cleveland just wasn't up to the task at certain points in references to that. I don't know. Mr. Rollup 10 says Altman should have kept marketing and let Mobley and Garland continue to develop. Team wasn't ready for Mitchell. I mean, at the time of the trade, those of you who have been listening to this podcast from the start know that I was against that trade, but Donovan Mitchell basically won me over because of just the MVP caliber level play that he started the 2022-23 season out with. And he elevated that even more at points during this year in the stretch without Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. So I don't necessarily agree with that because I do not believe Larry Markin would have blossomed into the all-star caliber player that he has here because his role would have been significantly diminished. If you need an example of that, look no further the amount of field goal attempts and touches that he has gotten over there in Utah. It just wouldn't have happened here. The breakout that he had there would not have happened here. The three big lineup, the tall ball, that was fun for a little while. It was definitely something that the Cavs probably could have built further upon, and they probably would have had more depth than they had now, but they had some problems to work out, right? They essentially were going to need to choose between Colin Sexton and Karis LeVert. I don't feel like they were comfortable paying Colin what he wanted. They lowballed him, in my opinion, right? Because I wanted to keep Colin, but they lowballed him, and then they felt like they had an opportunity to acquire Mitchell, and they jumped on it at the last second. That's what ended up happening. But I mean, we can play revisionist history in that regard, but there are top 15 players, top 20 players, whatever you consider Donovan Mitchell, they don't often become available. And when you have an opportunity to acquire one, you definitely do. You definitely do. DJ Brobot says, come on, Mac. Orlando built their tall ball lineup a year after ours based upon our example. We should have kept it. Yeah, but there's nothing to suggest that Orlando will be a contender just yet either. They have significant holes to fill as well. They are not a three-point shooting team. They have just been better than Cleveland. Make no mistake. I don't use this series as a measuring stick in regards to whether or not tall ball actually works. And the thing that we're failing to keep in mind here is that, look, one thing you can't quantify is the fact that Paolo Banchero, that guy, he is a superstar. Did the Cavaliers have that with the three bigs? No. So let's not do that. The Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and Lauri Markkanen, none of those guys. Love Evan to death. Love Jarrett Allen to death. Still believe Evan has a ton of potential from an offensive standpoint that can be tapped into with the right coach. And Lowry, again, we already talked about that. With Darius Garland in town, with Colin Sexton presumably being brought back, or Karis LeVert starting alongside DG, there was no way for that to have been successful. I mean, would you have expected Paolo level ball from any three of those, or any one of those three guys? Because I certainly wouldn't. I mean, he went number one for a reason, and that's why that works over there, because he is so damn good. I don't know. I could go all the live long day talking about that, but I can't compare the size that they have over there with what we had in that big lineup, because they're different types of players, right? Paolo is a scorer of the highest order. Lowry has kind of morphed into that, but at the same time, I don't think that he is Paolo level, right? And Evan Mobley, he still has some things to work out from a spacing standpoint. When you look at Franz Wagner, what's the difference between Franz and Mobley? Franz graded as the lowest three-point shooter in the league this season, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But what he did was have the confidence to pull the trigger. Mobley's not at that point yet. And it's been 3 years now. I don't think he would have gotten to that point. Yeah, but what you're not understanding, bro, is that Lowry got that because he had the increased opportunities. He's the number one option in Utah. I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, you don't understand what I'm saying to you. You need to go look at the field goal attempts. You need to go look at the touches that he has per game. He would not have gotten that in Cleveland. Not with a developing Evan Mobley, who we want to take that offensive leap. Not with Darius Garland, who is a ball-dominant guard. And certainly not with Karis LeVert, who presumably would have been starting next to him, or Colin Sexton. It would not have happened. So I love Lowry to death, but if you don't understand that, there's nothing that I can do to help you see it. Lowry would not have gotten that opportunity in Cleveland, especially with JB as coach. It just would not have happened. That's clear as day to me, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion, I guess. The only Shampoo says we need a moving offensive system like Warrior style, constant movement. That would be fun, but again, what good is ball movement? What good is ball movement if you're not knocking down shots? Seriously? I don't know. Will Grayson says, "Oh, now we want Larry back." No, I continue to say, if you listen to me, maybe you're talking to DJ over there, but no, that's not me. I think that we made the right call. That said, I feel like we're kind of veering off the path here, so I'm going to reel us back in simply by saying Cavaliers have an opportunity to close this game out close the series out rather in game 7. And if they don't do that, we all know what is going to happen. The core is likely to experience a soft rebuild. Donovan Mitchell's likely gone, probably going to be putting guys on the market, and that's definitely where we'll be at. That said, I've had you guys here long enough rambling on, so I'll just say go Cavs. Have a good night.